guys, Gary Lucas with Obsidian Painting here. By popular request, I'm going to actually redo this with a voiceover. So this is a wet blending tutorial, and I'm going to be doing it on an Eldar model, which I've actually recently just sold, so that's cool. And I'm going to be using 3 paints. I'm going to be using Shadow Gray, Lich Purple, and Space Wolves Gray. And with wet blending, you want to have a thinner consistency than right out of the pot, although you can wet blend right out of the pot, but it helps to have thinner paint. So I like to use these well pellets, okay, and right now I'm just adding water. And these well pellets I find help keep the paint a little moist, a little longer than just putting it on a straight flat palette. Now, with wet blending, you want to have at least a 1-to-1 consistency with the paint to water. So right now, per drop of paint, I'm actually having 1 drop of water. And I like to use a specific brush, and you'll see the brush right there, to take the paint out of the pot and put it on the palette. And I also use the exact same brush to add water to the paint, so that way I know how much paint to water ratio I got. Now in this video I actually do, I think, I actually think it is about half ratio of paint to water. And I get all 3 paints already on my palette ready to go, and that's Space with Gray. So just to recap, it's Lich Purple, Space with Gray, and Shadow Gray. And I'm doing a shadow, a midtone, and a highlight. Now what wet blending actually is I'm just taking paint and I'm putting it on a miniature, and I'm going to mix it as though I were mixing paint on my palette, but I'm mixing it on the miniature, so it creates a smooth gradation. And a lot of people get confused because they say, well, why would I want to do this, and yada yada yada. Well, normally when you paint, you need shadows and you need highlights, and well, it's not necessary, but it helps. And but a lot of people just try to layer, and layering is okay. There's nothing wrong with layering. Go back and watch my layering video. It's pretty decent. I may do a voiceover of that one. But what layering is just straight layers, and you can see the gradations, whereas blending, and there's multiple blending techniques, this is just one of them. And what blending does is it creates a smooth gradation, so you can't see where one color leads into the next. So right here, this is the type of brush I'm using, and it's a Raphael brush. Now, Kolinsky sable brushes are essentially the best brushes you can get. The hair is really soft, but on top of that, if you get a good one, it'll also have a good a reflex point to it. And as you can see, that's how pointy it gets. And I could literally paint eyes with my size 1 Raphael brush, because it's just so finely pointed. But Kolinsky sable brushes are really good, and if you get a good snap to the brush, you get good control. And my camera just fell. But blending and wet blending, there's multiple kinds of blendings. This is going to be wet blending. This is just one. And so what you want to do is I always lay down a base coat before I apply the blending technique. So I base coated the model with Shadow Gray, and now I'm just laying down some Lich Purple into what I would say are the recesses. And then while that's still on there, I just grab some Shadow Gray and throw it on the raised areas. And then I grab, I don't know, okay, so I'm not doing that yet. Okay, so now I'm just blending between the 2 colors. So to do this, all I'm doing is I'm just wiping my brush off, and I'm coming back, and I'm just pushing the paint. I'm pushing and pulling the Lich Purple into the Shadow Gray, and the Shadow Gray into the Lich Purple, until it looks kind of good. And what I ended up doing is kind of having more Lich Purple towards the top, and kind of having the highlight color near the bottom. But you can do it however you want. And always remember to keep your brush moist. If your brush is dry, it's not going to work. And you don't want it too wet, because then the paint will just go everywhere. You don't want that. Now, what some people will do is they'll actually leave this layer to dry. I'm kind of silly, and I just go for it until it looks perfect, and it's okay because you're wet blending, so who really cares? Alright, and so I'm showing you every single brush stroke. Unfortunately, my camera quality isn't the greatest, so... So once again, I don't actually go straight from dipping my brush into the paint and then throwing it on the model. I actually wipe it off before I do that. And this allows me to control how much paint is actually on the miniature. And I think right now I actually threw on some Space Wolves Gray. And as you can see, I'm just going back and forth, pulling it between the Shadow Gray and the Space Wolf Gray and the Lich Purple. I just go up and down, see? Now I'm throwing on some Lich Purple, and this is actually when I decided to just go straight up and down with it. Right, and then I'm just doing a side-to-side motion. The reason why I'm doing a side-to-side motion as opposed to an up and down motion is because of the effect I wanted. If you go up and down, what it would actually do is it would take the paint and your brush would actually bring it all the way from the top to the bottom. And I didn't want that. What I wanted instead was having the darkness at the top and the brighter portion at the bottom. So to do that, you'd have to go side to side as opposed to up and down. Okay, and you will see me go up and down because I'm actually dragging the Lich Purple into the little crevices and the creases. And a good thing to do, which I do kind of in this, is you want to blow on the model to get rid of bubbles that may have been created, and just to kind of, it actually evens out the pigment, I find, because you can like push paint all you want, and because you're working with thin paint, the pigment actually isn't going to go exactly where you want to. So if you actually blow, it kind of just evens it out and gets rid of any splotchiness. And here goes the Space Wolves Gray. Man, that looks horrible. That's okay. It blends in nice. And you'll actually find that brighter colors get washed out really quickly with wet blending. And and you'll also find they get really splotchy and chalky. The only really way to combat that is to add more shadow colors. Or you could later on glaze over it, you could do whatever, but with wet blending it's actually kind of difficult to get bright colors. At least I find. I actually really dislike wet blending. It's like the thing I hate the most about painting. Because one, you're using kind of thicker paint, because if you use too thin of a paint, it's just not going to work. If you use too thick of a paint, it's going to look horrible. And so you need, like, I don't know, I don't like it. It kind of scares me, because like I always feel like I'm going to screw up the details of the model. So I try to avoid wet blending. Although I find that certain colors work better for wet blending, and I find that purple is actually an amazing color for wet blending. So, but other colors aren't so great, like Space Wolves Gray. Anyways, so that's it. Stop by and let us know what you think.